Just as things were going right with cap space freed up for the Minnesota Wild and many offer sheets being on the table this offseason, including Golden Gopher Matthew Nyes and other big names like Mason McTavish around the league, there's a wrench thrown into the Minnesota Wild's plans for any kind of offer sheet going forward thanks to one specific acquisition this season. We have to dive into what the trade for Gustav Nyquist has to do with the Minnesota Wild's potential plans to offer sheet other players to add talent to this group, and an outlook of the team's skill and the depth scoring needed, and why this is very important and has big implications on the Minnesota Wild's roster moving forward. All that coming up in this episode of Wild Digest. So we're just going to dive straight into it. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this thought, all of this came from this article that I will link down below. It's a ton of fun to read. I suggest you go take a look at it in Hockey Wilderness. Give the author the credit they deserve, of course, but it just got me thinking, right? So, look, they're talking about Wild can't offer sheet Matthew Nyes, and I'll dive into more about what that means in a second, because, Matthew Nyes is a big name this offseason, as are a lot of restricted free agents because of the offer sheets that St. Louis sent out to Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway last year. Now, if you've been following the Wild very closely, you'll probably know what I'm hinting at, but I'm not going to get into that just for a little bit, because first I just want to look at a little bit of an outlook for Minnesota heading into this year, right? I mean, we take a look at this lineup. Now, I kind of messed around with these positions a bit. It'll probably not look exactly like this. Now, this is assuming Rossi is gone, because he's technically an RFA as well, so he won't show up here, but if you assume Rossi's gone, this is kind of what it looks like. These are the holes you need to fill. I mean, I have Danila Yurov coming in and slotting in at 2C because, look, the Wild have said that he's going to play center. That's their outlook for him, right? But one thing that you notice right away, plain as day, with Zuccarello not getting any younger, he's a name that's been thrown out in terms of trade talks from certain sources here and there. You need that depth scoring, and right now that top line was the thing that absolutely carried the Wild this season. I mean, Boldy, Rossi, of course, and again, that's its whole other situation. I'm not going to dive specifically into Rossi. I feel like we've done that enough, and let's be honest, we're probably going to do it again. But I mean, looking at this roster here, like, a guy like Rossi was great, but Kaprizov and Boldy, and then Zuccarello, these were the guys that were putting up the big numbers, right? And Joel Eriksson Ek even only had 29 points this year, right? Like, when we're looking at this, it's kind of crazy. There were only a few players on the Wild that had over 40 points, only 4 of them. And if you expand that list to be over 30 points, there's only 3 more. That's only 7 total players with over 30 points this season. So getting into the depth scoring is something that absolutely needs to be addressed this offseason. Now, I don't think that's any kind of secret, right? We know the Minnesota Wild need depth scoring. We know we need a little bit more, I would say a little more grit, but a little more grit that comes with talent. Because again, you look at the roster, it's not like this is not a gritty lineup. You have guys like Yakov Trenin, and we saw him do it in the playoffs. Brazeau, as big as he is, wasn't that physical, but you got Marcus Foligno, of course, still there. Hartman, physical for better or for worse sometimes, and even on defense, just the solid defensive play. A guy like Jacob Middleton is worth his weight in gold come playoff time. Even a guy like Merrill held his own when he came in for Buium, but the team needs depth scoring, and that's where this comes in. Now, we've been talking a lot about offseason targets. Like Sam Bennett out of Florida is one of these guys that has been linked to the Wild time and time again. It's just a great fit down the middle to stick behind Joel Eriksson Ek or put him wherever you need him to go. But now there's talking him getting upwards of $10 million. I can guarantee you Billy G's not going for that. Can I? I don't know. Bennett kind of fits his style of play. Oh, please don't be. There was a report saying one team was willing to pay Sam Bennett up to $10 million. I just hope it's not Minnesota. I don't think it'll be. Look, we've heard Brock Nelson, so many talks about maybe he wants to come home. Hey, big boy, 6'4". Hey, it works, doesn't it? And even a guy like Brock Besser to add to this, scoring that we need, even though it's not down the middle. It's a great winger. We hear all these talks, but when it comes to offer sheeting, that has been, well, look, listen, starting last year, really, it has been one of the premier ways to add good talent. I mean, historically, offer sheets have been extremely rare, let alone offer sheets that actually go through, right? I mean, there was the whole Montreal scenario with Carolina. That was probably the most notable one, or at least one of them, before the recent years here with Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, where Montreal offer sheeted Sebastian Aho, and then they just matched it, and then later, Carolina offer sheeted Kotkaniemi, and the Habs didn't match it, used those picks to go flip for Christian Dvorak. That turned out bad on all sides for all teams involved, but regardless, with Minnesota opening up a lot of cap space this offseason, there's been a lot of questions about, hey, maybe Minnesota could go offer sheet someone. Maybe we don't need to go get a big free agent like Brock Besser at $8 million a year. Brock Nelson at whatever cap hit he demands. With him, it's more the term that's the issue. Sam Bennett, hoping you don't have to overpay for a guy like him who's going to be great in the playoffs, but is only going to get you 50 points in the regular season. offer sheets are just a way to get good players, and there's a lot of different situations where Minnesota could use this, and one of them, I know Matthew Nyes was the talk at the start there. I want to just talk about Mason McTavish. He's one of these guys that has appeared on a lot of RFA boards and people saying, like, listen, this is the guy you got to go after. Now, there's not necessarily too much of an indication that Anaheim's willing to move on from Mason McTavish because, you know, he's a great young player. He's 6'1". He got some grit, 52 points. He's primed to explode if he has good line mates, but Anaheim is maybe looking to move on from some of their young guys to maybe bolster their team, try and make a playoff push, right? And of course, Matthew Nyes is the other guy here. A lot of Minnesota fans would want Matthew Nyes to come to the Minnesota Wild for various reasons. 6'3", 22 years old, 29 goals, 29 assists while playing on the top line with Matthews and Marner in Toronto. But Toronto's another thing. Like, if they want to go back and keep Mitch Marner, which I don't think is going to happen. I think there's a 99% chance he's gone. Seems to be what insiders are saying. Regardless, though, there might be a price that Toronto won't match on Nyes. He's their number one priority. But regardless, when it comes to these RFAs, you can only offer sheet someone, if you're Minnesota, if you have the certain amount of picks. What do I mean by that? Well, when you take a look here, let me show you this. This is the board for, let me actually go back to this camera. Hello. So this here, what you're looking at right in front of me here, is the amount of draft picks you have to give up if you sign a certain offer sheet. So for example, there, the second one up from the bottom, if you sign someone to an offer sheet between $4.68 million and $7.02, you would owe a 2026 first and a 2026 third round pick. So in essence, Minnesota could do that because we have our own first and third next year. The problem is, if I can get this here, we don't have our second round pick from 2026. So basically, if you look at any of these here, you'll notice the Minnesota logo is not there for any of these that require a second round pick. And what's the common denominator here between Mason McTavish, Matthew Nyes? You're probably not going to offer them less than $7 million, especially if you want to pry them away from their team. So if you look at that $7 million to $9.4 million range, Minnesota's not there. Why? Because we don't have our 2026 second round pick. Where did that go? Well, it's right here. When the Minnesota traded for Gustav Nyquist from the Nashville Predators, we gave up our own 2026 second round pick. Now, I'm sure Bill Guerin and co knew that if you give up this pick here, you have a lot less of a chance of offer sheeting anyone. Maybe this wasn't in their plans, but I just gotta say, like, I don't think offer sheets should be completely off of mind, out of what is that? Out of sight, out of mind. That's what they say, right? It's late. I'm sorry. It still just drives me nuts that I'm looking at this and I'm saying this, right? Like, Gustav Nyquist is, I don't mean to blame Nyquist again, because look, it sucked. His time here sucked this year. It was bad. It was bad. He made some bad plays. He knows it. He said he'd be open to returning. But if Minnesota wants to go for an offer sheet, if we don't feel like the UFA class is what we want, or we feel like we genuinely have a chance of getting someone to sign an offer sheet, you need the second round pick, unless you're, again, offering under that $7 million range, which is possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. There's plenty of RFAs that would probably fit that bill. But again, even then, I just want to point out that you still need your second for under $4.68 million. So the only place Minnesota actually could offer sheet someone is right there in that 4.68 to $7 million, or if you go out the 11.7 plus, which just never happens. So this, to me, it's kind of just crazy. Like, this throws a wrench in all the Minnesota Wild's plans in terms of RFAs. Now, again, I don't know if this is something that Bill Guerin actually plans to do, but I hate shutting doors on possibilities that are there. I mean, so many teams shut the door on the possibility of offer sheets until it worked really well for St. Louis. So you're probably going to see them more often this year. GMs across the league, analysts, insiders are all saying the same thing. Offer sheets are probably coming. Would not shock me if we saw a bunch of teams try to sign other players to offer sheet. Would not surprise me if Minnesota had the chance, they would try to finagle something to get that pick maybe back from Nashville and see what they can do. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts, because this, to me, like, of all people, of all trades to make us not eligible to do these offer sheets and not bring in, again, this is all hypothetical, but it's a ton of fun to talk about this, right? To bring in a guy like Nyes or McTavish or whoever it may be, to not have that pick because of Gustav Nyquist, I think it's just a bit funny. It's a bit ironic, all things considered. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on all this down below. It's a fun discussion, but that'll do it for this episode of Wild Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and hey, most importantly, subscribe. We're almost at 2,000 subs. We're almost at the end of May. Hey, if you guys are enjoying the show, hit that free button down below. I've been your host, Josh Goss, and I'll catch you in the next one.